My name is Bernard Mazur. I live in Auckland, New Zealand. I've lived here my whole life except for 2 years when I lived in Sweden, almost 2 years. I am a chartered accountant by profession, which is what my father was. And I'm married to a New Zealand woman from the bottom of the South Island, and we have 3 children who are all adults in their 20s. Now I feel like I'm a mix. I think as a child I was probably ashamed to be identified as Polish, and it made me different, and I stood out. So I didn't really enjoy the attention. But now, I think maybe it's natural, as you get older, you get more interested in your history and your roots, and having learned a little bit about my father's background, it's fascinating to me. Also, it's fascinating because there's so little detail that I know. I know Dad never spoke about his childhood. When we were growing up, he would occasionally say something about the town he was in, but of course we were never interested. And I imagine that he never spoke about his childhood because the horrors that he experienced, you can't put them into words. And how do you what's the worst thing that happened to me as a child? I missed the bus, or I fell over, but you can't put into words the horrors so why try? But as he got older, he mellowed, so in his late 70s, he was more ready to speak, and he tried to tell us some things. That was, and he even wrote us some notes. What was a trouble for him was by then his memory was fading, so it really frustrated him that he couldn't remember the exact sequence of events or the exact things or where he was or the order so that really troubled him. And he sometimes just couldn't recall it. Oh, and then the other thing that wasn't ideal was at that point I had 3 very young children, 3 under the age of 2, and I had no time to ask him questions or show interest. I was just busy getting through the day, so the opportunity to talk with him when he was ready, I kind of let that pass, which I regret, but I know their names. His father was Mikhail and his mother was Victoria. I understand his father was an officer in the First World War, and so Dad never really spoke about that, and maybe it wasn't something that he knew anything, but as I now understand it, he would have been either gifted some land or perhaps bought it very cheaply to settle in the east. They had a farm, a few hectares, maybe 10, I think. And I don't know how well they lived. I think it was very hard, but I think after they'd spent a few years there, it got easier, that they had, the farming was getting more productive, and I think that their lives were okay. I think, but I don't know, I have to find all this out. When he was younger, yes, he would never speak of it. In fact, my impression is that if you raised the topic, it would just be shut down. He didn't. But as he got older, he was okay to talk, but I was too busy to ask, and his memory was fading. But we don't have anything there's one photograph of his parents, but there's 4 people in the photograph, and we're not sure which are his parents. But it's on the wall over there. We're not sure. The others must be his uncle and his aunt, but we don't even know who reasonably well. He was in the very first deportation, 10th of August, and his story was pretty, standard. I just got a book. I went to England last month and managed to buy this book, which is short stories of the deportees. His was pretty standard. He was put into a cattle wagon with his siblings and his parents. They went to Sokol, near Archangel, and from there he went to another camp, and I know the name of it somewhere, actually, in here. And so they arrived there. It's about a month, I think, in the train. And when they were put to work, his parents were the first to die. I think his father and then his mother. And that was what was so exciting for me when I found this book, because there's one sentence where my grandparents are mentioned. So somebody who was in the same labour camp, same cabin as them, wrote their story, and they mentioned my grandmother and the orphaned children. So his story from there, when they were granted amnesty, in quotes, amnesty from what? I think all the siblings, there were 6 children or 7 children. They were all alive then. The oldest was Bronick. I think he was 16. And so he was in charge of the children, and he made the decision to stay in the camp until the rivers froze. The river, I know the river name when I see it. And then they travelled by sled down the river, which is a typical journey of the other Polish people, through Uzbekistan, Tashkent, Kazakhstan, and along the way, I think one of the brothers got lost. One was run over, probably deliberately, in Tashkent by a truck. That's 2 gone. 2 of his siblings died when they got to, so they ended up in a camp in Isfahan, and 2 of his siblings died there, his sister and one of his brothers. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Must be somebody else that died along the way. Yeah, I think. And so in the end, it was only his oldest brother, Bronick, and my father, Tadek, who were alive. Bronick was old enough to join the Polish army by then, so he joined the army and left. And like lots of other Polish soldiers, he fought at Monte Cassino. He ended up in London, and they did know of each other's existence, but they didn't see each other again until 1977. So it was quite a long time, from 1940, 44, 42, so yeah, 30 something years. So Bronick joined the army and fought, and my father, who was by then 15, he was one of the 733 children that travelled on the boat, the General Randall, which I think they picked that up in India, in Bombay. I'm not sure that they took it all the way. And arrived here, was today the 31st? Arrived into Wellington Harbour on 31st of October 1944. So they arrived this day, but they didn't dock until the following morning, tomorrow morning. So it's quite a poignant date, actually. So that's, his story is very unique, but it's not unlike thousands of others.